Hi, this is Cheryl back with you from Farmhouse Frugally, and I am so glad that you joined me today. I have had so much fun creating this video. Now, rather than saying this is Valentine's Day, I am saying this is really kind of more of romance in the air because I gathered all the things that kind of feel romantic to me and decided that I would prefer to use these in ways that I can have more than one day of the year. And I know many of you don't do Valentine's Day. I'm going to start with this very odd looking clock that I got for free, yes, at my dump. And I am going to take the back off and I am going to remove all the stuff with hubby's help because that's what he does. He's a clock repairman. And then I am going to pop that face off. I had some lovely ephemera or postcard type papers in my stash, and I thought how pretty these colors are, so I am going to use one of them and use the ring and just get myself somewhat of a circle here. I'm going to use the bottom of my paintbrush to punch that hole back in and then just use some Elmer's glue and cover this monkey's face with this beautiful ephemera. Now, seriously, this was the easiest thing I've ever done because the color of this clock was absolutely gorgeous to begin with and went so well with this postcard. So I am simply going to have my husband put all that back together again because I don't know how, and that will be that. And then I had this little piece left over from what I had cut off and decided to go ahead and make a tag for later, but here that is for now. Before I go on, I do want to tell you today's collaboration is being hosted by the Crafty Doll and by the Creole Crafter, and this is a Saturday morning craft your stash, so I am really enjoying getting rid of some of the stuff out of my house. So continue on. Next thing in my stash is a picture frame. I'm just going to remove the back first. Probably at the dump it was in my stash and I can't remember where it came from. Had a million screws in the back, so I took that off, cleaned the glass, and then I just used another one of those gorgeous postcards and I put some rice paper behind it and then some white copy paper behind that just to make sure I had a white background and just reframed that to give me a good background for this vignette. And before I show you that, I have this adorable little shoe. If you saw my recent haul, this came from the Goodwill bins, which was, probably 5 cents because it doesn't weigh anything. It's actually like rubber. I took the laces out just so I could give this a little bit of some dark antiquing wax where the little stitching and the edges are, just to make this a little bit more vintage and look like it's actually been used over time. And then after I wipe that back, I just put the laces back in this. And then once I had that done, I wanted to put some floral foam in the bottom of the shoe. Several months ago, I had gotten a big, huge box. Actually, my daughter had gotten a big, huge box of all kinds of antique trims, bits and pieces of somebody's stash left over. And I had some really lovely laces in there. So I took this kind of crocheted cotton lace and just used that on the inside of the little shoe so that it'll look a bit like a sock hanging over the edge and just give me that vintage feel. So I just glued that right in. Most of the florals I had were a little bit large, but I was able to find a couple in that romantic blush pink color that I really, really wanted to use. Just kind of play with that a little bit until I get the arrangement the way that I want that, adding a few other little bits and pieces. I had a little rosebud from another one. Added a little bit of boxwood, and that was full enough. I didn't even need any moss. And then I just tied up the little lace into a bow. And then I went into my stash, and I really had hoped to use some of the molds that I made from the Model Magic that my husband had gotten me for Christmas. And so I just went ahead and made several tags and several birds while I had it out. And once I had that out, I will use the bird today, but I will also use the larger bird a little later on. Funny thing was, when I took the larger bird out of the mold, the two wings touched each other. And this stuff, once they're together, it's together. But I opted to kind of leave it like that because I thought it looked kind of cool. So you'll see that later on. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take the distressing ink, and I'll just go ahead and give this little bird a dark antique or vintage feel to it rather than painted or anything. I just want to give it a touch so that you can see the details pop out, and then I'm going to just tuck that right into the shoe. Before I move on, that is how the three of these look together, and these were very easy to create, so if you are able to find anything like this in your stash, I think that you will really enjoy it. And then another very simple thing to do, if you really like the shabby chic look or the cottagecore, this is wonderful. It's great for the romantic Valentine season, but it certainly isn't limited to just a day or a week in this season. So I really wanted to keep these very generic. And so all I'm doing is just taking some more of that beautiful vintage lace. The bits and pieces that were already cut off fit, in the most cases, perfectly around just a little clothes peg. And so I just went ahead and just glued the tiniest bit of glue on the end to keep this from unraveling. But certainly it is something I can use in the future if I want to. And then I did this with a number of different laces and ribbons to put in a jar, and then decided to darken the wood tops with some of that distress ink to make these look a little bit more vintage. Now the lid to this little jar, this also I believe came from the dump. It was that silver, but it was a little bit worse for wear, so I just went ahead and painted the lid with white chalk paint and just gave it one coat because I took some wet paper towel, wet distressed around to bring a little bit of that silver back out, and then used the distress ink to make this look more worn and more vintage. So then once I had that the way that I wanted and it was dry, I attached that little tag that I had made from the bottom of that postcard. And then here are a few shots of how that looks together. I love this with my white ironstone and even the little silver tray that I had out for New Year's on my table. So these beautiful blush pinks are just so lovely. But I couldn't stop there because I had found this little napkin holder, I presume, at the Good Table at my dump this week. And I thought, well, I'm definitely not going to use it as a napkin holder, but I don't mind having naturally wood-colored hearts. So this just had to be removed from the base. Then I just painted the whole thing white just to have a base to go by. And then I just took a little bit of white and a little bit of red, came up with a pink color, and painted half of the heart in pink for the idea that I had next, which was to go ahead and to attach another one of those postcards. I think it came 10 in a pack or 12 in a pack. And so you're not going to see a whole lot of this by the time I get all the embellishments on it. But just to get that feel, same color tone, I just used Elmer's glue, glued that on, and then used my little sander to sand off the edges. And then this is where I decided to attach that bird where the wings had touched one another while I was making it, and sort of made almost like a heart-shaped bird. I thought it was adorable. But when I'm a little too aggressive here with my antiquing wax, I did break off the tip of this wing and have to glue that back on. And I wanted that more of that blush color, so I used a lot of antiquing wax or the distress ink around that pink just to kind of tone that down and then highlight the edges, and then just glued that little bird on with some Quick and Thick. And then just went ahead and repaired that little wing. Then I did want to add a few little more kind of cottagecore or shabby chic embellishments to this. So I took a little bit of a velvet ribbon and a little of that antiquing lace and just made a little bit hanging down on the front from the center of the heart. I added some greens, and then I had this cute little silver bird in my jewelry stash that absolutely looked perfect with this. So I popped that on the top as well, trimmed up that little lace, and I think it came out adorable. And here is how this entire vignette came out and looks together. Very cottagecore and shabby chic. And my new office, I think, will have more of a touch of this shabby chic feel. I don't feel like I need to have my entire house all look the same. In fact, I have much neutral vintage feel in my living room and a primitive country dining room and a shabby chic cottagecore bedroom. And I am changing things around all the time whenever I'm creating because I just really enjoy the process of making things that I enjoy making, whatever style they're in. That's not really much of a concern to me, but I would love to know about you, whether or not your home is all one style or whether you mix things up and change things around. So yeah, leave me a comment and let me know what style you favor. And I am hopefully going to keep this up for a good part of the spring or incorporate them into my office design, which you will be seeing hopefully soon. But I am right smack in the middle of doing my bathroom over, so that one will probably come first. And here is another look at some of these items in a little display box that I got at the Goodwill bins for $2 in my most recent haul. I thought it would be fun to display these in a different way. And I want you to remember to check out the host channels. I'm grateful for them allowing me to join in with their collaboration today, as well as the playlist, and all of that is in my description box. And don't forget to hit the like if you enjoyed this. That really helps. I would love it if you would share it with a friend. Hit subscribe if you haven't. And I will see you in the next one. Take care.